Yeah, so it's basically just going from Zoom and then just sharing onto Facebook is all it's doing.
Okay, and I don't
Um,
even have to accept it's there.
yeah, yeah, you don't need to do it. You don't have to do anything on Facebook. And I could just film this and then just share the video, but then I guess it doesn't really give people the opportunity to ask questions. And sometimes there's a lot of questions.
Hmm.
Sometimes there's hardly any. There's just people saying hi or whatever. But yeah, sometimes there's a bunch of stuff. So uh, yeah. So I guess welcome everybody to another Kettlebell Almanac. We have Jennifer Hittenberger with us, and she is going to talk about kettlebell marathon training, and what marathon is, and kind of the background for it. I personally hate marathon, which she was just telling me that she also hates marathon, which is funny because like that is your whole thing. I mean that's not all you do, obviously, but like I what how long ago was that you did like it was like 50 marathons in 50 days. It was something ridiculous. That was
Um,
like before COVID, wasn't it?
it was during the pandemic. So
Okay.
I was supposed to do 60 days of 3 hour lifts around North America, so all 50 states and all 10 provinces. And I'd been trained to do 60 days of 3 hour lifts. And then 3 weeks before we were supposed to start it, the pandemic happened. And so I wanted to do something else. I did end up doing 60 days of 3 hour lifts at home. Just I didn't even tell anybody just because I wanted to know I could do it after all that training. But no, what you're referring to is I did 150 days of 1 hour marathons. And the goal at first was to do 100 days of marathons and see if that was possible. And over 21 different countries joined and lifted with me, over 100 different lifters. And we raised money for a charity to support women and children trying to escape domestic abuse. But I did 100 days with 16 kilograms, and you'd think you'd break down, but instead I got faster every day to the point that I jerked 1,753 reps in an hour, so 29 to 30 reps a minute for an hour. And so I just felt like I didn't get, like, I was waiting to see when I would start breaking down, and it didn't happen under 16. So then I increased to 18 kilograms and I made it 45 days. And I was just getting faster in long cycle and jerk every day. So then I switched on day 146 to 20 kilograms. And so the last 5 days were 1 hour, 20 kilograms long cycle. And I put my ribs out on day like 149. Um, and I was like, okay, this is enough. I did 150, but I had to repeat my last lift on day 150 because I got to the point where I found what was going to break me down, and it was that weight. So yeah.
It's funny, like people just when you're first starting kettlebell, whether you're doing marathon or a traditional lift, uh you just don't realize how much of a difference like 1 kilogram, 2 kilograms, 4 kilograms make, especially when you're lifting over a long period of time. And you're thinking in your head, like, well, it's just an extra 2 kilograms, like I can jump up in weight. And then you go to do it and you're just like, no, I can't.
Yeah, no, you're
It's
right.
not the same.
It's shocking. It's shocking how it has that effect. And I think this is why I train a lot different than other lifters. Even, I did 10 years of single and double bell lifting before I got into marathon. And even back then, like I would overtrain the lighter bells before I touched that next 2 kilograms up because it was that much harder. So, for example, 1 arm long cycle, when I wanted to get 120 reps with 24 kilos, I finally developed a way of doing it because I kept missing by a rep or two at every competition to get MSWC. So when I finally got it, I didn't train with the 24 at all. I trained until I could get 10 minutes each arm at 12 RPM with 18, 20, and 22. And then I was able to get the 24 kilogram MSWC without touching it in training because I had trained so much with those lighter bells. Yeah, it's a huge difference though, especially when you're doing what you're doing and you're increasing doubles, like going from double 20s to double 24s. That's monumental.
Or going from 24 to 32. That's what I was going to try and do again this year. And
That's not just 2 kilograms.
It's not, no. I did it last year and I had a pretty good train, like, because I don't train on 32s really, like in my regular sessions. Maybe like every once in a while I'll do it, just more so for kind of shits and giggles, just to do it. But I don't allow myself to do it unless I can make a certain number. So if I pick it up and it's just too much, then I just don't do it. But last year when I trained up for it, I gave myself, I don't know, I guess it was after World. So from June until October. So a good little training cycle. And on that, I really kind of had continual progress. I wasn't on 32s a lot, but when I would go to pick them up for a part of my set, like I would have continual progress. And when I went and competed, it felt really good, other than it's heavy as shit. I mean, it's just so heavy. It just weighs you down so much, and you feel like if you sit for too long, you're just gonna get stuck. And so I did it, and I felt really good, up until like 5 minutes, and then I just ran out of steam, and I just couldn't jerk them anymore. And
My
then
body weight. What are 30? Like 70.
that's 140 pounds.
That's exactly my body weight that you're picking
Well,
up.
maybe I could just jerk you next time.
Let's
That
go.
sounds strange. And if there was just audio for this, I'd be like, what?
Right?
Yeah. And so this year when I was trying to do it, I I was just really struggling with the weight, and I kept getting just like little like back stuff where my back would get twingy, and so I'm like, I probably shouldn't do that for I'll pick it up for next time. And then it got farther in, I was like, you know what? I was like, it's just not gonna happen this year. Like I'm not gonna keep fussing about it. And so I just ended up not doing it.
It's not worth it when you're getting those twingy things, but is there no option for you to spend some time with the 28s instead of 24 to
No,
30?
I could have done that, yes. And I have lifted the 28s. The last time I did it was a long time ago. I think I did like 40 reps long cycle or 42. So I definitely could do that. You know, I always feel like pressure to perform when I go to meets.
I could see that.
I feel like an obligation to like
Yes.
show something, I don't know, amazing. And that's dumb, but I do feel like that.
I
So
could see how that would be
anyways,
to you at this point for sure. I mean, lifting 28s, I feel like anyone's going to be
yeah.
just as impressed as if you were lifting the 32s. In fact, just seeing you under those 24s this weekend was just, yeah, that's everything.
Yeah, well, your lifts were amazing as well. So, what kind of like got you into doing marathon? Because you started out doing traditional 10-minute lifts. Man, when we met, I think we met in like 2016, maybe, or was it before that? I think it was like 2016.
I think
I think it
maybe
was at the IKO meet in California.
is that
Were you
I
at
think
that one?
we must have known each other for quite some time online before because I felt like we knew each other for a longer period of time during when I was lifting doubles. Like I felt like it was years. But maybe, yeah, because I switched into long cycle right after I was in a mountain clip accident, not switched to
I
long cycle
remember this.
marathon after this accident because I had a pretty severe brain injury and PTSD, which was very debilitating. And then alongside having a lot of physical injuries from this, it was just impossible to compete in doubles. And at the time I went out to visit my good friend and coach at the time, Abby Johnston, and she was going to compete in Italy at a marathon world championship. And since I was an MSIC lifter, I was allowed to compete at the first world championship without having gone through any national qualifiers or anything. At the time, these were the rules. And so it was a safe thing for me to train for because I'd come off of, I was doing double 16-kilogram jerks. My best at the time was 176 reps. So like 17 to 18 reps a minute double jerks. That's pretty intense, 10 minutes straight. So for me, from doing that to lifting one of those bells long cycle, switching hands as often as I want. That was the heaviest women were allowed to lift at the time. So it was easy for me to do
Mhm.
that, even being injured, even being unwell. I could still continue to compete. And it didn't take much out of me physically or mentally, which was ideal at the time. And then what's happened since and how I'm still doing it is now it's really cool, especially with IKMF. There's no cap on what women can lift. So like within a year of me lifting marathon, it switched to women being allowed to lift 20 kilos for 30 minutes to an hour. It's a lot harder. Like we talked about going up a couple of kilograms. And then since then, I've competed in 2 world championships with 24 kilograms. So far, I think I'm the only one who has. I thought at the last Worlds, other girls were doing 24, but they were doing 22. Their bells were green. So I thought it was 24, but I could lift 26, 28, 32 if I wanted. So the reason I'm still in it is because now I'm excited about what else I can do. But especially after competitions like Mr. America last weekend, I really miss doubles. So I don't know where I'm headed.
When I go do long cycle, and then I'm like, man, I really miss doing long cycle. Just um well, if anybody's done jerks, it just they really suck because you're just only in one position the whole time,
Yeah, it's
and unlike with long cycle where you're really getting fatigued, like your condition is just fatiguing. In jerks, like your arms are fatiguing, and so there's a lot more burn and I guess pain with I feel like jerks than there is with long cycle. You get there's a lot more different like rest positions, and even like cleaning the bells is really a rest from, being in this rack position. And for anybody that doesn't know, like Jen was saying, she's doing 17 reps a minute with the 16 square jerks. 20 is really fast. So 17 is also very fast. And if you look at like the elite, like professional, like male lifters that are jerking 32s, like 150 is a lot. So really anything over 15 is pretty quick. And so when you start getting up to that 17 and 20 reps per minute, there's like almost no rest. Uh, with 20 especially, there's almost no rest between the repetitions. So
I
it's very fast.
I think unless you would follow doubles more, I think it's still a world record, 176 with 16s in 10 minutes, like done in competition. I
I'd have to go look, but
slow.
it probably is, yeah.
Like it's
Um,
so what I was going to say though is I was able to get a point where I could lift the lighter bells fast, but I never really had a chance to get up to those 20s. And it's a different game, like we just talked about with the 2 kilograms, but that's 4 kilograms. And so yeah, I was able to max the 16s, but that's back when women were just starting to also lift the 20s. And now women are lifting 24s, you're lifting 32s. So yeah, there's definitely a part of me that wants to see, but the climb back up again. It's
I mean, I think people forget, especially newer people into the sport, like it really wasn't that long ago. It was like 2000, well, it was before this, but women didn't start lifting doubles really until 2014, 2015. And before that, like there was one arm long cycle for a little bit, but then before that, it was just snatch. Like
yeah,
women were only doing snatch.
yeah.
So I mean, so there's been a lot of stuff has happened really just in,
The last
what,
10.
15 years, 10 years.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of changes. So I don't think we quite answered this, but so what really brought you into doing the marathon portion?
Okay, so that would have been that accident that
Mhm.
it just I didn't want to stop competing in sport, but it was not an option to lift doubles anymore. I had too many injuries from that, and marathon presented itself, and yeah, it was about 2, 3 years to recover from that accident. And because at the time we were only allowed to lift lighter, it was something I could still do and compete in on a high level.
What do
So
you feel like is the biggest, like, if somebody's trying to switch from doing traditional 10-minute lifts to marathon style lifting, like what do you think like is the biggest barrier or the biggest challenge most people face when switching over or really even trying to do both?
That's a really good question. Um, they're both very, very different sports. And I feel like in some ways they both transfer to each other really, really well. And then in other ways they're completely separate. And I think, sorry, I think that close that window. I think that probably the biggest thing is it's also similar to, I think, a mistake I find people make in traditional lifts is people don't put in the time and train the time. And so they don't have the ability to last when they come to a competition, or they slow down dramatically. So they don't take the time to build the time, and they also, because of that, don't understand how to pace to last the time. And in marathon, if you don't last the time, it doesn't matter if you did 700 reps. If you put your bell down, your count is 0. So I think just learning how to pace and learning, and you have to spend the time under the bells to understand how to pace, would be the biggest limiting factor.
Um, so I kind of noticed that if you are a pretty good like 10-minute traditional lifter, if you're able to go 10 minutes at a decent pace, most of those people have a easy transition over to do marathon. They're not going to be like the best marathon lifter, but they could go do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have enough grip strength to make it through. They're not going to be like the top one up there, but they can perform okay, fine.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely. From doubles,
what
from
do you,
doubles to marathon, but I don't know if it would be the same from singles to marathon.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I mean, yes, I mean with doubles. So
Yeah.
if you can go 10 minutes with doubles, long cycle, jerk, then usually you can go do a marathon set and you've got enough endurance with your grip and your shoulders to alternate making that 30 minutes. Are you going to be like the best in the world? Absolutely not.
But
But
yeah, you'll be able to complete it.
right, you'll be able to complete it. So how much time are you usually spending in a training session if you're training for, let's say, a half marathon, which is 30 minutes long? How much time are you spending during general training sessions under the bell?
A maximum an hour. So I'll train, sometimes I'll try to train, like if I'm competing with 24 kilos, um, and I want to do a heavier day, then I will spend a given amount of time under the 24, maybe depends where I'm at in my training cycle, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then I'll finish out the next 10 or 20 minutes with a 20 kilo or an 18 or a 16. I'll drop to build time. But on a heavier day, I'll probably train maybe 40 minutes. And then on lighter days, I'll just do a marathon. I'll do a marathon with a 16, 18, 20 kilogram belt because it is significantly easier than 30 minutes with 24.
You're right now you're working on, what are you working on right now?
It's a great question. I just did some snatching, some double bell jerk. Uh,
Do you know what you're working on right now?
I would say so. Right now, I have the world record with 30-minute marathon, which is 330 reps with 24 kilograms. So I would really like to beat that. I would like to at least do a solid 12 reps a minute. The max you're allowed is 13 with IKMF. I'd like to do 12 reps a minute or to complete 30 minutes with 26 kilograms would probably be my next goal. In
Okay. So for anybody that doesn't know, with IKMF, like for half marathon and marathon, so it's 30 minutes and 60 minutes. If you don't make the time, you don't get credit for your repetition. So if you make it, 29 minutes and 50 seconds and you put the bell down, you don't get any of your points. So you have to make it the whole time, as well as they have like a capped pace. So that way you can't really be doing reps that it's not likely that you're having a whole lot of fixation. So they have it very controlled. And so if you want to go more than 13 reps a minute, it's like, well, you're going to have to go up in weight because they're really calculating for if you win, they're really calculating the kilograms lifted, correct? Because
Yeah.
you can lift, let's say, 22 kilograms and do, we'll say 13 reps a minute, and potentially beat somebody that's doing the 24, doing 10 reps a minute or whatever.
Yes, absolutely. So you have to make really smart decisions before you lift. So a couple things I really love about the IKMF. One is that max reps allowed, because for example, last weekend, I'm sure you saw it, we didn't have judging, we had counting happening. There were a lot of reps that hurt my heart to watch competition. I'm hurt my heart because I've been competing with IKMF for so long now, and it's so beautiful to watch. Like it's so easy to judge. You're like, yep, 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 over and over. So I do love that they've done that rep cap. It's a little bit more complicated as a lifter to kind of do the math, and it takes time. It's like a whole separate skill, including our physical and mental conditioning, is like figuring out strategically what's the best skill to pick up. But it makes for a professional looking competition, because with long cycle, it's 13 reps a minute, and that's not slow. That is still.
So that is fast for long cycle. It's very fast. So if you go over, I was kind of wondering this. I haven't competed in IKMF, so if you go over the RPM in a minute, do they just not count that rep? Or when they get to the very end, they're like, hey, it was capped at 550 reps and you did 560, so you don't get those 10 reps. How does that part, or they're just like at the minute, they're like, nope, that 14 doesn't count.
Yeah, I thought
that one in that minute.
Right? I thought it might be like that when I first heard of this system. I was like, that's going to be really annoying as a judge. But no, they count all the reps that are countable. And at the end, say, like last week, and I did 418, my count would be 390, because that's the max that you're allowed to do. So we do 390. And this is where it's super helpful at IKMF. You don't have to determine what weight you're lifting until you're warming up. And then you could say, okay, today's a day I've got 13 RPM in me. Or like if I would, like this competition we were just at, I asked to lift 22 because I only had 4 weeks to train for this competition, because I had H. pylori bacteria. I was on a really hard treatment and I was quite sick for many months. So I had 4 weeks. So I was like, I don't know if I can do this. So within a couple of weeks, I got like 16 and 18. And then the next week I managed 20. And then the very last week before competition, I hit 12 to 13 reps a minute with 22 kilograms. But in traditional competitions, too bad. You already said you're lifting 20, that's what you're lifting. And so fair. But IKMF, it would have been a waste of my time to lift all those extra reps because they don't count. So I would have grabbed the 20 and done like a 12 to 13 pace, and I would have ended up with more points than doing 14 reps a minute. Because I was only 2 reps shy of 14 reps a minute with the 20. So that's another really cool thing about them, is you just bring your bell to the judge, whoever's judging you, they mark down the weight, they watch you put that same bell on the platform, and then off you go. So yeah, I think that's really great. It's also helpful if you've just traveled 30 hours and you've got jet lag and you're like, you know what? F that 24, that 22 looks good right now.
Yeah, because you're only as good as you are that day. There's some days I come in and I feel bad and I'm like, oh, this is not going to be a good set. And it ends up turning out to be really good. And then there's other days that, I feel, and I'm like, it's just not happening. So you pick up the weight and you're like, this feels so heavy, like I'm hurting or whatever. And so each time you go to a competition, like your result is really dependent on, how you feel on that day. And you could be able to lift your best lift ever, but that day it's just not happening, And so, yeah, that it does suck when you show up and you're like, man, I really wish, because like with WKSF, like for whatever reason, still the women have 2 professional weights, which I feel like is unfair to them.
I just had a look because
I feel like it's a little bit sexist.
Maybe we just need to bring this up. We've made all these other changes, like bringing double bells out and letting us jerk, letting us long cycle. Maybe it's time, because yeah, I just had a look at the table a couple days ago, because I don't think I can make the IKMF Worlds with my exams. They're May 3rd in Spain, and my final exam's May 2nd. So I was like, okay, I'll go catch a WKSF event. And I had to look at the tables just yesterday or the day before, and I was like, just 16 and 20. I was like, well, what do I?
Yeah, they don't. they don't have a 24, well, for the doubles, for long cycle and for biathlon, they don't, I was trying to think if they have a table now. I have to go back and look now if they have a table for the women's long cycle. For sure they don't for biathlon, because last year was the first year that it was like even a lift. Because the first time I went to WKSF, I had to do a long cycle, and that was the first year that 24 long cycle was a lift. Yeah, so I wish that they would just, because I know women like, and it's like if you build it, they will come. So like if you just made it 24, the women would just do it. Like they would say, I don't want to lift 16 because I've been lifting 20. Like that seems like a step back. And they
Yeah.
would just rise to the occasion and they
Yeah.
would lift 24. But if your option is 20, as a professional lift, like you're gonna choose 20 because you're like, well, 20 is like, yeah, I'll just do 20. It's still a professional lift, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so especially since when we had that Dennis's IKO meet or like at Worlds whatever in 2016 or whatever it was, and we had 12 platforms of women
Yeah.
lifting 24s. And
Yeah.
that was like very early on. And they just trained the 3 or 4 months that they had and they just did it, you know? And so yeah, I wish that they would adjust it.
It's got to be just a matter of time. So even with the doubles, it's still not 24. I was looking at
It's 20 and 24.
20
It's
and
both. Like, so you can live professionally with 20s or 24s.
whoa.
Um,
Okay. So you think they should not have the 20 there? It should be professionals 24, amateurs 16. Right. Okay.
because that 8 kilogram jump is the same as the men's, right? And the men don't get to lift at, 28 or 32 for professional. They just have 32.
Yeah.
And I know like the original reason was like, oh, it's to make sure we get more women on the platform because not all of them can lift 24s. But I'm like, if you never change it, like people won't just, a lot of people won't just go do it on their own. They're going to say, no, 20 is the lower one. That's what I'm going to go do. Um, so I don't know how long it'll take them to change it, but I'm like, there's enough women now, like you could, and they would just do it because they don't want to lift in the amateur division because they've already been lifting professional. And they would just rise to the occasion and they would just do it because
Yeah,
make
that's right.
them,
They don't want to go back
you
to
know,
being an amateur lifter. Yes, I see what.
no.
See, with the marathon, 24 is not an option. The heaviest is 20. And I'm like,
Mhm.
that's, yeah, I guess I'll have to lift some doubles. I don't know.
I think in marathon for WKSF it's 24 for
I'm pretty,
professionals.
I'm
Is
pretty
it
sure.
not? Is 20?
Yeah,
Oh, for just one?
I just looked at it. Yeah. Yeah. So unless I looked at it wrong, but all
Oh,
I remember seeing is purple and yellow across.
well, geez.
Yeah.
That seems like my husband was like, well, why don't you just lift 20s this year? And I was just like, that seems really unfair. Other people that have been training, and I'm coming from like doing, 100 or 120 reps in jerk, and I'm just like, I'm gonna drop down to 20s.
If
And
I was just coming up to 20s, like I'm like just building in doubles and I'm like, yay, I'm gonna lift 20s. And Kim Fox goes down here. Yeah.
I
I know
don't
what
know.
you're
Yeah,
saying.
it just
I know, but it's also fair.
it is. It's not unfair.
Like you get to play whatever game you want to play. Do you want to lift the 20s and lift the basket? Do you want to you can go wherever you want.
I'm
But
gonna do veteran and I'm lifting the 16s. No.
no, you don't want to.
I don't. It's really fast. I don't have to go that fast. I mean, it's nice having like a couple breaths between each repetition. Okay, so if you were getting somebody into marathon training and they're just kind of coming in, what are your usual like benchmarks to kind of identify like when people should be moving up in weight specific to like marathon training?
I think what's been really helpful once again is that IKMF cap. So what I tend to do is get them to be at least a rep higher than what the cap is in long cycle, a couple reps higher in jerk or snatch, because there is more room in those lifts. Those lifts are capped at 20 reps. I think half snatch is at 18, so 20 is very doable. So I try to get them with a lighter weight. I might even start them at like 8 or 10 kilograms. Some, if they've already been lifting for many years, I'll start them at 12 as their lightweight. And I just get them to max reps on the lift they want to compete in, plus a rep or two, so that that weight is something they can do on a day they're not feeling well. They might have an injury, they're not in the mood to lift. So it's so easy for them that the next weight up isn't intimidating. It's something their connective tissue will be ready for, because that's another thing in weightlifting sports is people tend to lift heavier just because they can. And I really feel like just because you can lift heavier doesn't mean you should. And so our muscles adapt a lot faster to load than connective tissue, than ligaments and tendons. And so to prevent joint injuries, this is something that I've always thought about, even in 10-minute doubles and singles. I try to overtrain that lighter weight and then just take the 2 kilogram increment up, rather than back in the day where we only had the 4 kilogram option. We never had those transitional bells. So I really take advantage of the fact transitional bells exist now. And I just keep trying to max out that next bell weight with pace, and then move to the next. And I slowly incorporate the next weight up. So it might be like 10 minutes with the next weight up, the bell goes down, and you immediately pick up the next one and finish out the time, or you have like a 1 minute rest sort of thing, because marathon and half marathon are very much about your ability to continue. So big breaks are not going to serve them well in the way they would with the 10-minute lifts.
Yeah. You were talking about incremental jumps. You know, I know I've had some students in the past that just, you know, they don't have all the bell weights, and it's very challenging to train and progress when you're making those big 4 kilogram jumps, or drops, 4 kilogram drops, because if you're going from a 16 to a 12, it's significantly lighter. And so when you're trying to, you know, tax the body without like basically overtaxing it, so you still can maintain technique, but you're getting that muscular and endurance taxation. When you're dropping from a 16 to a 12, you're just like, all of a sudden you're like, it's like almost no work. And so you don't get the same result, I think, out of it as you do when you can have 2 kilogram, or even sometimes like 1 kilogram jumps or drops, jumps into that training. Like, so having those in between weights is really important, especially if you want to, I don't want to say progress quickly, but progress more quickly. Because I think those 4 kilogram jumps, like, it really slows you down, because it's harder to tax your body consistently throughout the training. And you end up just going like really hard and dying, and then you drop down all that weight, and then you're really not that hard. And so you have to go for a really long time on this much lighter weight before you're achieving that fatigue. So there was one question. When you're doing your training, I'm guessing this is probably for competition, do you switch on time, or based on a number of repetitions, or is it just how you feel, or is it magic?
I love the is it magic. I didn't expect that one. I switch on reps. I don't switch on time. So say my goal is to be doing 13 reps a minute. Depending on how I'm feeling, ideally I would do 7 right, 6 left, and then I'd switch 6, 7, 7, 6, 6, 7, 7, 6, 6, 7.
Oh my God, that would.
So I travel with, you might notice I bring a big old school.
Okay. Nobody else knows this. And when I was making a joke because I did not realize that it was for real. So I go to the competition, and Jerry, which is Jen's mom, is carrying around, or I saw over with their stuff. First of all, they brought so much stuff. They've got all the foods, they've got all the warm up, they've got everything. And there is a large old school, like round, like clock that you would see like in a school classroom, you know? And I see it over there in my head. I'm thinking, like, did you steal that off the wall? There it is. It's got a crack in it. Is that that one? The one she
Yeah.
obviously
It's
is
got
like
a crack
broken.
in it because
Yeah,
I
there
fell
it is.
off a chair and landed on it, shattered the glass with my butt. And yeah, go on.
So I was like making a joke. I was like, did you steal that off the wall? And your mom was like, no, we brought it. And I was like, what? It's like you brought
Yes.
that huge clock. And she's like, yeah, we always bring it. And I was like, oh, okay.
So Valery Fedorenko taught me this. I've always lifted by this because when I was first introduced, Valery taught like if I was training doubles back in the day, if I'm doing 12 RPM, I know like it's very calming because I know before every number, I've got to put that jerk up. If I'm training 10, then I just take a blue marker and I would divide where I need to put up every rep. If I'm training 9, same thing. And you divide the clock. So when I used to train doubles, it would have like green lines, red lines, blue lines. Green meant I was doing 9 RPM. Red meant I was doing 11. But it really, really helps you to pace. Eventually, you become skilled enough that you can do it with your breath. But so yeah, I'm a very nervous lifter. I don't like when people look at me when I'm doing things. And so I bring my clock and then I just focus on my clock and it's very soothing. And so when I'm doing my doubles, it's peering backwards on there, but I know by the 6, I want to have my 7th rep up or at least like around there. And then I've got space to get my next 6 kind of thing. But yeah, it keeps me on track. Whereas looking at the like glowing red lights trips out my eyeballs. I can't do it. So yeah, but I
I
switch on.
also do not look at the thing. So
Oh,
this probably would have helped me early on, like to have like a clock, but I just, people would always like, okay, every 6 seconds. And then in my head, I'm like, 1, 2, 3, oh, shit, what am I on? And then I start thinking about things in my head because you're standing there for 10 minutes. And so I just learned how to do all my pacing with breathing. And so I know that, 4 breaths is like 8 reps a minute, or 3 breaths is like 8 reps a minute in long cycle. 4 breaths is about 13 for me, or 11, 13, somewhere in there for jerks. And I don't watch the clock because I can't. I'm just 1, 2, 3, 4 rep, 1, 2, 3, and or if you ever see me at competition, Jake will stand back there and count my breaths for me because I forget.
yeah,
Start
yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, that's why that clock helps because I get so distracted too. I swear I have ADHD. My brain's all over the place. And if the music's faster, suddenly I'm lifting faster and I could feel things are changing. I'm like, why is this changing? Oh, because you're lifting to the music, not to your pace. Come back, kind of thing. And that's where that clock helps to keep me on track. But to finish the answer to that question, I'll try to like have a plan like that where it's 7-6, 7-6, whatever. And then in competition, for some reason at home I don't use chalk. It affects my breathing, so I don't train with chalk. But in competition I'm super nervous, and a lot of people sweat and they worry the bell's going to fly out of their hands. For some reason my sweat is sticky, and it happened again at Mr. America. I can't switch hands, it gets stuck in my hand, and I have to like, so what I was doing at Mr. America was I like to do a low switch so I don't waste time, but I had to do a high switch to give myself time to pull my hand out so I can get the other hand on the bell. And then I had to get Sarah to give me some chalk, and my hand is still got like some garbage here, which I never have marks on my hands, but at competition I do tend to tear my hands, and so that 7-6 goes out the door and it becomes switch when you can, usually the last 10 minutes. But in training it's
when I
always
have
be even, no problems.
when I have done marathon, I've done it on occasion when I've been coerced by force of gun. I do it on repetition. I just know like, hey, I need 10 reps a minute, so I'm just going to do every 10 reps. And if I go a little bit faster on one just by accident, I don't try and, or if I go a little bit slower, I don't try and catch up. I just, that's what it was, and I just move on. 10 reps, 10 reps, 10 reps. And so sometimes, it might be 45 seconds, or, and then, so I was telling you I did an hour yesterday, which, oh, we were even standing in a circle. So
Did you do
talking,
long
well, I
cycle?
wasn't talking, I was just listening because I was going way fast. I did do one cycle, yes. And so I think I finished, I was having trouble keeping track counting. So I had one of my students like every time, because I was just doing 10 each hand. And I was like, so every time I finished his hand, I'd be like, Heather, and she would have to go put a mark on the board. So I ended up somewhere around 620 reps in an hour, I think. But my counting was not amazing because they're talking and I'm listening. And but yeah, the whole time I was just like, I look back and I'm like, shit, it's only been 10 minutes. And I wasn't even watching the clock. So, and then I look back again, I'm like, it's only been 15 minutes. Uh, yeah, it was, oh, there's a couple of questions. So,
I'll tell you what,
um,
real quick, I watch Netflix. I watch movies. So that's how I
oh,
know.
that probably is much better.
Yeah, I can't.
Actually, I have one student that lifts marathon, just one. And I think on her last lift that because she didn't do it in competition, she had to do it virtually. And she was like, yeah, she was like, I just watched Netflix the whole time. And I was like, that's probably a really good idea.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a question. This is for training. Is pre-exhausting the body with 10 minutes each hand of push press and one arm half snatch going to benefit one arm long cycle. So I'm guessing they're talking about doing training, specifically doing push press as part of your training cycle in exchange for maybe long cycle on a day, or doing one arm half snatch in exchange for long cycle on a day.
So then what about the pre-exhausting question? Is that
I think the question is do you feel like that doing push press to basically kind of uh, work your shoulder muscles and your arm muscles? Because, you know, in jerk, you're really not, your arm really isn't doing a ton of work other than stabilizing the bell overhead. Like that majority of the pain that you're feeling is in your stabilizing muscles and then like physically like keeping the bell locked out. So your triceps start to burn. But in
Mhm.
general, like your arm isn't really doing a lot of work. So I think he's asking, is it helpful to train push press? Like, so you push press for like, that's a long time to push press, 10 minutes each
Yeah.
hand, or, you know, maybe changing out instead of long cycle, doing half snatch. Uh, do you feel like this would be beneficial in training one arm long cycle?
Okay, that's a unique question. I think that it's being asked because perhaps this person is having shoulder fatigue when doing the long cycle. It sounds like they're trying to do something that to prevent that by training it harder on off days. Um, but to be honest, that's the most common thing people say to me is your shoulders must be so exhausted. I promise you, I never feel my shoulders when I lift ever. It's almost as if they are not even participating. There is no fatigue. I don't do any strength training for my shoulders. I don't do push pressing. I don't do strict pressing. I probably should just so that I could have a little bit more here, but I
I
don't.
mean, you
I,
know, there's something to be said. You
I
know, the bigger your back is, the smaller your waist looks.
Oh, yes, I do need to put on tights. I do, especially after seeing the women last weekend. I was like envious, like muscle envy everywhere. But what I would do is if you're for the half snatch, yes, I do think that would be wonderful transfer in terms of conditioning. Just be careful with the effect that it has on your hands. It should be okay because it's half snatch rather than um, full snatch. It should be a little bit more forgiving on the skin because both of them create a lot of friction. So, but I do think the cardiovascular element is going to get benefit from doing the half snatch on the off days. Might also prevent boredom with doing the same lift all of the time. But if shoulder fatigue is a problem with marathon, then what that would say to me is not that you need stronger shoulders, but you need a more relaxed lockout. And this is not always immediately achievable by everyone if they have limited range of motion in the shoulder. So working on rolling out and creating more length in the lats, improving range of motion in your thoracic spine, the middle of the back, just trying to do more range of motion exercises, even hanging from a bar. And Kim, you might have some more ideas, but I think developing a more comfortable overhead position where you're able to stack your wrist above your elbow, above your shoulder, and let your shoulder sink into the socket would be more beneficial to marathon specifically, because like I said, I don't feel like I use my shoulders for a single second when I lift. If anything, my triceps might get really tired in an hour lift, especially with something like jerk, but my shoulders, they really don't do a whole lot for long cycle.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times people, when they're struggling with, especially like for jerk, because that's all you're doing is this repetitive, overhead positioning. And so your ability to get your arms in the right position so you have less fatigue, you can walk out more quickly. I think that some people struggle with thoracic mobility
Yeah.
and their inability when they go to jerk to flex that shoulder back, because you need much less range if you are slightly extended back versus if you're completely neutral. Now your arm has to really come a lot farther through. So I think doing like basically those dead hangs where you really are letting that scapula like spread out and relax. And then also doing mace swinging where you can get in a loaded position here, which ends up being the same position that you're gonna be in with your arms straight. Really getting that load while you're going through range of motion, I think makes a big difference. I have a student that same thing. She just really is struggling in getting in the lockout position. And really the problem is more so she's not flexing her upper thoracic when she's going up into the jerk. So she's, really neutral. And so if your mobility already isn't great, then you're trying to lock out with this arm like kind of forward. And then you have this like bend already, and you're really holding the weight, and versus like getting that scapula locked down in, and your hand to really lock out overhead. Um, so working on that spinal mobility also, I think, can make a big difference, as well as the shoulder mobility.
Yeah, and releasing the pecs as well. If they're tight, that will that will prevent them from being able to get into that position. So I think the best thing that people can do is, there's three things. I'm going to go with what we just talked about: increasing their mobility and their ability to support the weight in the skeletal system, versus in the muscular system in lockout. So anytime there's a bend, that's in the muscles. If they can all align it, then it's in the bones. The other one would be making sure they're using their legs. So this gentleman who asked, just making sure that you are not pressing your bell, that you're staying connected in your first knee dip, and that the drive, the upward motion, is coming from under the bell. It's not a pressing motion, it's coming from the legs. And then the third thing I was going to say is, if there are some people who will never have the mobility required to relax in lockout, and in that case, this suggestion of push pressing would be beneficial. I don't even think it would be necessary though to do 5 minutes straight per arm. I feel like even training push press, switching every minute or two, will have a transfer, because it's going to create more endurance in that shoulder than what they'll require in how often they'll typically be switching arms in marathon.
Mm-hmm. There was another question about what your diet is like on comp day. And I know you had a bunch of food there with you at competition.
Yes, all the food on comp day. Not a lot actually on comp day, because I do have, like, I have endometriosis, I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. I've just found a cyst on my liver literally yesterday. I had an appointment before this with the doctor. I have a lot of things in my abdomen that do not feel great under a load. And even if you don't have these things happening in your stomach, when you're lifting heavy weight, that intra-abdominal pressure is really, really stressful. So I try not to eat a ton before I compete. I'll have a green smoothie first thing in the morning, and then so lots of fruit. Um, I've been trying a vanilla Vega protein powder lately. There'll be some greens in there. And then I'll eat like raw balls, which is like lately I'm into almond butter, coconut flour, maple syrup, sea salt, some vegan chocolate chips, and I'll snack on those. So anything, I guess my answer is anything easy to digest that gives me some calories, but is not going to sit in my stomach. Even when I did doubles, 10 minutes, whether it's 10 minutes or 60 minutes I'm lifting, my biggest problem when I lift is pain in my stomach. And so I don't know how you are with that, Kim, but
I don't eat a ton on competition day either. I usually eat breakfast. I mean, if I was at home, um, I would probably have like either cottage cheese or some eggs and then some carbohydrate. Like if I'm out of town, it's usually some kind of protein bar that's more carbohydrate based that I'll eat in the morning. And then I might just have like dried fruit like throughout the day. I usually don't like eat lunch. And after that, if I still am lifting, if I have a couple hours, I might eat another protein bar, but usually I'll just eat some fruit, something that's going to break down quickly. That'll give me some carbohydrates. You know, I might have a banana.
yeah.
So I don't eat a lot on competition day itself unless I'm like kind of my lift has to be like pretty far away. Because when you're highly excited, like I feel like your stomach empties much slower. And
Mhm.
so then you have stuff that just like sits there and nobody wants to go into comp. And my ultimate fear is shitting my pants on the
I was
platform.
gonna
So
ask, like, do you get
um,
abdominal pain? Like, or is
I
it
don't
just
get
because
abdominal.
you have like endometriosis? Like, do you get when you're lifting? My stomach kills. It doesn't matter what lift I do, it hurts bad when I do
No,
anything.
yeah,
No?
I don't get abdominal pain, but I do get like, probably everybody's like this, but I will probably poop like 20 times before I get up on the platform. And I'll just be like, nope, I think I gotta poop again. And
Yeah.
I haven't even really eaten anything but just
Nerves.
I'm excited. And so that adrenaline just, it just pushes it right through you. And
Yeah.
I just get very nervous about having to go to the bathroom while I'm up there or having to poop while I'm up there because once you're up there, you're up there. And I told you that during my snatch set, this last one, I lifted, three 24-kilogram lifts in a day, which was a terrible idea. Like in my head, stuff seems like a good idea, and then I go do it, and I'm like, that was way worse than what I thought it was going to be. Um, so I was doing my snatch set, and this has never happened to me before. I was like, and I had just gone to the bathroom, but I started like peeing like every snatch rep, and I was just like,
Oh no.
this isn't my worst fear, but it's definitely up there
We're
for me to
getting there.
be up there. And just like in my head, every rep, I'm like, so exactly how many more times do I need to like barely pee that it's just going to eventually just be on the platform? Like, at what point is it going to be obvious that this isn't sweat?
Yeah, right? I think that's like a fear that women have, especially if they've had children. It's very common in our sport. I know the pooping I've heard a lot of men talk about, so I think that's a common thing. And then yeah, I think women also have that fear around that time of the month for us. It's there's other things we're thinking about on top of the challenge of lifting these bells. But I didn't know that happened in your snatch set. Shoot. Yeah. Your body put
Well,
in.
it's funny. I was going and I was like, okay, I was like my right hand, which is my weaker hand usually. If it's gonna stop early, it's gonna always be my right hand. So I was going and I had a pretty decent set on my snatch, not my best, but I was going okay. I think I got like 70 reps on my right hand, and I was like, oh, that's all right. Like, so I went ahead and switched hands because like you always get scared when you're doing like survival reps. Okay, am I going to drop it? Is it gonna hit the platform? At what point is it I need to go ahead and switch? So anyways, so I switched hands and on my left hand is when this started happening. So I was going at a pretty good clip. I had 70 and I don't watch the time. I don't watch the thing because I feel like there's just it makes it seem so long.
Yeah.
So I usually just am thinking about how I'm feeling, how can I adjust my snatch to make it feel better or whatever. Anyway, so I started peeing. And so then I'm thinking about this and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore because this isn't worth it to me to be up here peeing for the set. Like it's just not worth it.
I think it's
And
awesome for sharing this, by the way. I'm sure.
yeah, so I look at the clock and I'm like, fuck, I'm only at 100 reps. I was like, I feel like I've been going for a decent amount of time on this hand. I feel like I'm past 100, but I was just like, whatever. I was like, I guess I'm not past 100. And so I feel like I was maybe at 7 minutes, but I'm not even sure. Um, and so I was like, you know what? I was like, I still have to do another set. I have a long cycle set after this. I was like, I'm just gonna this. I'm okay with this. I'm just gonna stop. you know. And so I put the bell down and I, went to the bathroom. And so I came back and one of my students was like, they missed a bunch of your reps. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like,
Oh,
they missed like 15 or 20 reps. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah. She's like, I noticed. She's like, he was pushing, but it wasn't clicking and he wasn't using two
I
counters.
judged that once on that platform. The same thing was happening, and luckily I'd been using the clicker because
Yeah.
oh shoot.
So I think I ended at like I was really at 120 when I set the bell down. I was like, damn it, if I had known I was at 120, I just would have kept going. Because I was
Yeah.
like, God, I'm so far behind. Because I was like
Mhm.
pretty far ahead of Audrey. And I was like, and when I looked up, we were almost like neck and neck. And I was like, damn, I don't feel like I slowed down. I was like, maybe I did slow down. I guess. I don't know. I haven't been watching.
Right. Oh,
So,
mm,
but
oh shoot. That's horrible, really. Like that could have been a totally
it's
different outcome. But I know you got to leave it in the past because there's nothing you can do about it. But I do know what you mean because I was clicking for somebody and then it was starting to count double reps. And I even talked to the lifter and I was like, I don't think this is right. And he's like, no, I didn't do that many reps. I'm like, so we can agree it's the one I've got on this because I had the clicker. And he's like, I showed him and he goes, yeah, that's more like it. And it was the opposite. It was like 15 less because I was noticing like I'm clicking and suddenly it was jumping too. But that's very difficult for a lifter because you don't know
yeah.
what's going on. You're like, I feel like I've worked a lot harder than what that timer says. So what's even the point right now?
My fatigue feels like it should be a little bit farther along. I mean, it's fine. I was just like, it's whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I talked to you like when I went into that competition, I just wasn't feeling great about it. And I think kind of rightfully so. Like I just wasn't feeling very positive about it. Like I've been sick prior to and blah blah blah. So yeah, when I went to do that long cycle set, I was like, this is a bad decision. Like I was just so dead. Three 24 kilogram lifts in one day is just a lot on your body. And I was
I can't even begin to imagine what that was like.
well,
Interesting, because I watched you, I wouldn't have seen that struggle on your face. I didn't realize you were feeling like that inside, especially your jerk set. Like, were those
my
the
jerk set
best numbers? Like
was
that
okay. My
was,
jerk set was okay.
was
It
like,
was not I didn't feel the best, but I made it through to whatever. I think I got 100 reps. I've really been trying to get back to 120, 130. Um, my job and I just need to get more focused in my life.
it's hard. There's so much going on to try and prioritize something that requires so much of you is consistently is, yeah, that's not easy.
I was thinking about this earlier because it was with this question that came up earlier. So for people that are if they're getting fatigue in your shoulders, when you're lifting, it could very well or in your arms, if it could be very well because you're push pressing. But sometimes people are very good at hiding a push press because they've just kind of like learned what they feel like is the proper movement. But a pretty good indicator is when you are jerking. If you're noticing that at the top of the lift, your bell always has like a little bit of wobble back and forth. A lot of times that can be from the push press because when you're jerking and you're initiating that energy from underneath the bell is really what has the bells. The bell is what really has that energy in it, and your arm is just following it up there. But when you're push pressing, the energy is really being put on the bell from right here in your hand into the corner of the bell. And so because you're pushing through that point, it all the energy is just in that one point. And so then when you get to the top, because of the energy is all at the front or whatever you want to say, you'll get a little bit of wobble up here. And if you're doing a clean jerk, there might be some up and down maybe just because you've put more energy into the bell than you needed to get overhead, or you under squatted a little bit more than what you needed to get the bell overhead. So there might be that up and down movement, but there's not wiggle this way.
That's a great way to explain that. I've never thought to put it that way before. Hmm.
So another good for cleaning, I've noticed that when, if you're pulling the bell when you're cleaning, so really you want to use the drive from your legs to put energy into the bell so that your arm is just following it and it's, coming up to rest. But if you film yourself when you're in slow motion, and if the bell is when you're in the pull portion, if the bell is in line with your hands or slightly above, the energy is in the bell, right? If you notice that your bell is kind of cocked down and not in line with your hand at the pull, then you're pulling the bell with your hand. And so you're not utilizing all that energy because your hand is the one that's really getting in there and transitioning the bell versus it just, coming up. So for people, especially if you're training alone or if you have your own clients, like you can kind of watch them in slow motion and you'd be like, oh, like you're putting some energy into the bell with your hands here. So
Yeah, never pull your cleans. It's also going to take a lot out of the skin on your hands.
yes. Okay, so we have a little, well, we're at an hour right now, but just back to some more marathon. What did you find that was, I think you already talked a little bit about most helpful when you were starting marathon was really that you trained up with lighter weights at the pace, the max pace that you're wanting to go for whatever the heavier weight is, or 1 to 2 reps a minute, even faster. So that way, when you get to the heavier weight, going just the 12 or 13 reps a minute seems easy. Is there any GPP stuff that you utilize that you feel like really lends to helping you with marathon training? And for anybody who doesn't know, she's very good you're very good at kettlebell lifting just in general. But I'm always like amazed when you're marathon lifting. I was just like, how's she doing all these reps? Her arms are so small.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. And hey, I know they keep getting smaller. It's not the intent.
No, I'm just there's a firefighter that trains at the gym, and every time I see her, I'm like, Jess, I was like, you probably should do some more arm work. Your arms are just so little. And she's like, oh no. She's like, I've been trying.
Right? No, that's the thing. So when you say GPP, and if I'm being completely honest, the problem, geez, especially this last year and a half, I've been a student, so it takes up about 50 to 60 hours of my week. So probably the last year and a half, I have done no GPP. I think that I get by on skill because I do know how to be as lazy as possible while doing work. So having a relaxed lockout, knowing not to pull my cleans, knowing to follow my bell, let the pendulum do its thing, using my legs when I'm doing the jerks, not using my shoulders. I think I'm an effective, lazier lifter. And the accumulation of doing so much time under the bell and maintaining a solid pace is how my conditioning is there. But the only GPP that I would say that I do right now is yoga because I need to keep like
it. I knew you were gonna say that.
I know that's a strange one because it would be a different if I had more time, it would be different. And I can tell now that I'm 43, coming up to 44. And like I said, being at Mr. America and seeing all of these women with muscles, I'm like lecturing myself like, Jen, you need to get to work. Like muscle mass is the most important thing as we age. And I'm getting smaller instead of bigger. So I do want to prioritize putting on size, putting on more muscle mass, getting stronger. I know that, lifting 24 kilos for half an hour, I have strength. but I do believe it's more skill than it is strength. So
I think 100%, like once you've been lifting for, I think GBP is more important. Not that it's not important when you're more capable, but I think when you're first getting started, GBP is very important because it's really getting your muscles to where you need to be to hold that weight. But I think once you've reached a certain level of volume that you're able to lift, I think it's less important than it was when you were first getting started. And because once you're at a certain level, I think it's very easy to maintain that and even grows, from there. Than when you're first starting, because when you're first starting, your volume is way more than what you're used to, but is not very much in comparison to what a professional volume is.
right.
And so that GPP is a lot more important in, getting
Yes.
more balance.
Yeah, because you can't actually do the time under the weight, but you still need to build the strength and conditioning. So you
Mhm.
have to do it in different ways. Whereas now I can do the time under the bells, whether I have to change the weight and increase the speed, or, I can do all the work under the bells. But my GPP would be, because it is a repetitive motion, yoga really helps to balance out my body. I try to finish when I finish a lift, I try to do at least 10 minutes of Pilates because I have a 30-year history with disc herniation, L4, L5, figure skating, rugby, car accidents, mountain cliff. And I feel vulnerable to low back injury if I don't make um, an effort to take care of my pelvic floor. So I'll do a bit of Pilates. And then climbing. Climbing is my favorite, like indoor bouldering is something I like to do because it makes me feel stronger than anything else that I do. And it's more functional strength. A lot of people will say, I coach some people who climb and they say that they do it because they want to build their grip strength, but I don't feel, and I'm curious your opinion on this, I don't feel like when you develop skill in kettlebell lifting, you need significant grip strength. Um, I don't know that training grip strength is super beneficial because
I really haven't found anything to be better at training grip strength than doing kettlebell. Like back when I first started, uh, doing kettlebell, my very first coach had me do like 7 to 10 minutes on a battling rope. And I don't think, now that I've been training for a long time, I don't think that made a bit of difference on my grip strength. It's just not even the same motion. It's not the same type of requirement on your grip as it is when you were snatching or long cycling. And even sometimes I feel like I don't know that farmers carries really are taxing your grip in the same manner. I think it's going to make your grip stronger, but is it going to make it stronger for kettlebell? I don't know that it necessarily does. I do think that like swings, where there's a variance in, even when you're doing like high pull swings, where there's a variance in when you have load in your hand, because at the top of the swing, you're going to have very little load in your hand. And then at the back of the swing, you're going to have less load in your hand. And then during the main part of the swing, you'll have more. And so I think that is more adaptive over to like what kind of grip strength you're going to have for, because if I go do jujitsu, right, my grip strength's really good, but my
yeah,
grip strength is not going to be the same as the guys over there holding onto a gi, even though I can hold a 24 kilogram bell for, all this time. And
yeah,
is my grip strength stronger than them for kettlebell? Yeah, 100%. They're not going to be able to come in and do X number of reps with the 24 because their grip's not going to be strong enough. But they can go over there and hold on to a gi for like 4 minutes. And when I get done, I'm ah, like pterodactyl hands. Um,
yeah.
so
The transfer, I don't think the transfer's there. I'm with you. Like I think you said it exactly right. The only way to train your grip for kettlebell sport is with kettlebells, and not even necessarily a farmer's carry. It is more the swings, the high pulls, like that sort of stuff. So yeah, climbing for me, it makes me feel strong. Like it works my back so much, and I love that. And it's just another way of building strength, where I don't hate my life, where I'm just having a good time. It's super fun. So yeah, no typical for me.
Eric does want to know what our secret is to looking young. I think he wants to apply it to himself. Mostly mine is a ring light.
Well, mine is daylight right now. And so it looks like I'm just white. I look pale right now.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
husband got me a ring light for Christmas, and I was like, "What do you want me to do with this?" Like, I don't like, and he's like, "For the almanac page," and I was like, I opened it up, and I was like, "You got me a ring light? Like, what do you? Why don't you just get me a screen door?" Like,
I use my ring light for the lighting. I live in a really old house. It was built in like 1870 or something. And so the lighting is still really, really dim to this day. So I use my ring light just as a light. Super powerful.
oh well.
Yeah. Just so
So
I can
last
see at night when
question.
I'm reading because my eyes aren't great anymore.
So how many days a week, not for GBP, but how many days a week do you train under the bell for marathon?
When I'm not in school, probably 6, 7 days. I just always lift. It just makes me feel good. When and if I were to get back to 10-minute traditional lifting, it would be more like 3 to 4 days a week. I feel when I do doubles, and this is my hesitation to get back to it, it does take a lot more out of me mentally, to be honest, to do those sets. I feel I'm at higher risk of injury. I'm a little bit more intimidated to do those sets, and that may not be the case. It could just be in my head. Versus marathon, I feel like I could do 6, 7 days a week because I just adapt. And I could do this with traditional lifts as well, but I don't know. I feel more pressure to always like meet specific programming with 10-minute lifts. But with marathon, if I'm feeling good, maybe it was a day I planned on doing just a light 60-minute 16 kilo lift, and then my warm up, I'm like, whoa, this 24 feels light today. Let's go. And then I'll do that 30-minute lift, and then the next day I'll get that 60-minute 16. So I do train almost every day of the week with the bells, just varying the weight and the intensity. Right now I'm in school, so like last week I had 2 15-hour days, so I definitely didn't train those days. It's probably more 4 or 5 days a week.
Okay. And I think you said already, like usually when your sessions, I mean, I'm sure it varies, just like any training, depending on what you're focusing on. But your sessions are usually between like 30 minutes to an hour. And I could see that that's probably very doable. I think just like you were saying, when you're doing double lifts, it does take a higher toll on your body, both mentally, like your neurological system. It does take a pretty big toll. I mean, I was really dead when I came back from those 3 lifts. Just like physically, emotionally, I was just like, I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah,
But
emotionally, I know, right? Like I remember that.
yeah. Um, but I think like for snatch and or even for like I think one, well, maybe not 5, 10 minutes set list, but for snatch and I think for marathon, like because it's more endurance based, the load is lighter on your body. So even if you're doing heavier weights at 20, you're still only, 40-ish pounds
Yeah,
of load on your body versus, 105 pounds. You're doing 16, 30-ish pounds is, it's much less
exertion.
injury and yeah, to your body. Like your body just doesn't notice it as much, right? It's like if you put 5-pound weights on your ankles. Like at first, when you're walking, it might seem heavy, but after about 10 minutes, you wouldn't even notice it. Like your body would just adjust. But if you had 100 pounds that you were carrying around on your ankles, like you would notice that for a long time.
Yes, yes,
Your
yeah.
body's not just gonna get used to
Yeah,
it
you
because
would.
it's
No, that's why, like, if I do a 16 kilogram or an 18 kilogram 1 hour lift at above max reps, for me, people will be like, oh, that's so much, you need to rest. I'm like, that's like going for a walk. Like, that's is like a runner going for a walk when I do an hour with that weight, because by comparison to how the 24 hits me for 30 minutes, where I feel like suddenly like my obliques are strained. And like, once again, I always have abdominal stuff. Like, it just feels like it goes to spasm and lockdown for like 3 days, but yet I can pull off, even if I'm in spasm, an hour 16 or 18 kilogram. And to me, it is like going for a walk. I just watch a movie, getting some conditioning in, but it's no real significant effort because it's so small by comparison to when I'm lifting the 24 kilograms, or by comparison to someone doing double 10-minute lifts. And they do transfer both ways. So like we've talked about how the 10-minute lift transfers to the marathon. For example, I haven't trained single arm. Like I've been switching 30 seconds for the last like 5 years of my life. And then I did 10 minutes with 20 kilograms this weekend. And I tested it once before. And so I did 131 reps, my first time trying in like 13 years with one hand switch. And that's a hard number for people to hit, with one hand switch in one arm long cycle. And I feel like I could probably do that with the 24 within 3 to 4 weeks. So there is a transfer both ways. Whereas I remember when it took me years to be able to get 5 minutes straight with a 20 or 24 kilogram bell. And I was able to just I did, I think 6.5 on the right in competition because I had this tear. I had blood blisters. And it
Is
was
that when I told you to not be a bitch?
yes, that was perfect timing. Yes, you did. But I was certain I could have done 10 minutes straight on this arm with 20 kilograms at 12 to 13 reps a minute. I could tell. I was like, this arm's not done, but like I'll share with my left hand. But I could tell there was no problem at all, which was the strangest thing for me because I do remember how difficult it was to get to that 5 minutes per arm with this weight. And that was indicative. I do believe that I could probably do 22 within a week or two, and then 24 not long after. So I think the transfer is quite nice from the 10-minute doubles to the marathon, and the marathon to the 10-minute singles. I just don't know how much it would transfer to the 10-minute doubles. I don't think very much.
Yeah. I guess we'll see, right?
Right. I mean, I did like 10-minute double 12s in the Netherlands after I was at a world championships in Denmark. And then they were training that night, this like a couple nights later, and say, hey, come train with us, but we're doing doubles. And I said, okay. And I could do it. That's 12s, but I hadn't done it in like 6 years. And I was able to have a base.
There's
That's a
in
very low base.
yeah, and the clean, like it is a very different lift going from singles to doubles. Like the movement is very different. Like the way that you clean is different. When you're cleaning a single belt, you can very much so just like very narrowly, reduce the length of your swing by narrowly dropping it down and swing it back up. And that is not as possible with doubles because you've got to clear them both through your legs.
Yeah.
So it definitely is a different movement. I mean, they're the same, but they're not the same.
No, lockout. Just even this morning, I was doing some double bell jerks. My lockout is very different. Like my lat was so twitchy because it's not used to being in the position it needed to be with doubles. So that's another thing. Normally with singles, and I remember going from doubles to singles, feeling annoyed with lockout with one bell. And now I've done one bell for so long. When I went to put up two, I'm like, oh, what's that? That's also a different position.
Yeah. Okay. Well, is there anything that you would like to share with, well, when is your next competition? You said you might come to WKSF. That's what you said.
This is a problem. Yeah. So I did say that because I thought that we have a Canadian qualifier in January that I could go to qualify for Team Canada to compete with the WKSF. And I was just notified it's not a qualifier. So I would have to drop a couple grand, if more, to go to BC to catch that qualifier to be able to go to WKSF. And so I don't know if
I do know that the AKLU did work out an agreement, I guess is the best way to put it. You might want to check to see, just because I think you would be doing a professional lift, so I don't know if that changes that at all. But that you can lift at qualifiers, that at the US qualifiers, send in your result, and that it would count towards. So like if we have people that, like we have one person that lives in Canada, but they're a US citizen, and so she can lift at a qualifier for Canada, get judged by them, send us her result, and we will count it towards a qualifier lift. just to kind of some reciprocity, I guess, is what I was trying to say. So you might want to check to see if maybe there's another lift that or another location that you can do that might not be. I don't know if it matters. It may make a difference for professional lifts and not in shows.
Okay, I did hear a bit about it. I just don't know if there's any that are still existing in the US. Like if there's any more qualifiers where Canadians can do that, because it would be cheaper, I imagine, for me to come to a US qualifier than a
There
Canadian.
is, I will get you the upcoming qualifier dates. I need to double check, but I think that Dennis's comp is going to be a qualifier.
Amazing.
Um, I need to double check with him and see if we're good to go on that. I think the last time when we talked with them, they were going to do it. And then there are some other, because we have quite a few, just because, well, just like Canada, like the United States is so big, and trying to get as many people, give as many people the opportunity to go lift at a world competition, because it is expensive to fly around all over the place to try and get a qualifier done. So we try and host a lot of them. So I think we usually have between 5 and 7 qualifiers throughout the
That
year. So.
that's what's really difficult in Canada. We have one organization, the CKA, and they are, and I will say this publicly, they are not trying to provide opportunities. It feels like more they're creating obstacles for us to compete at world championships. And we have a lot of Canadian lifters who are very frustrated with it, to the point that you said, like they're allowing certain US competitions to qualify us, yet there's a competition here in January in our own country. And they're like, no, that's not one of the qualifiers. We have 2 that we offer, and that's all that you can go to. And one of them is a month after Worlds. So it would, like, the one nearest me is in July and Worlds is in June. So
Mhm.
it's very frustrating, but that's awesome news. If I could find out if Dennis's is an option, I would love
Yeah,
to.
I'll check with them. And so if not, I mean, I'm sure we would adopt you.
Okay, I would love that. I keep hearing this. Other countries want me to live with them, but my country, oh, giving me a hard time.
I know some people. I know some people.
I feel like you do. Yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'll let you know. And then, yeah, hopefully if there's anybody else listening, we've been trying to reach out. We've reached out to a couple different countries like Australia, and to kind of create some reciprocity agreements, like, hey, if we have a US citizen, we were specifically thinking about soldiers that are stationed, like we have a couple soldiers that competed last year that were stationed in Germany, right? And so they can't get to a US qualifier because they're stationed in Germany, but there are qualifiers within Europe that they could go lift at, and then they could send us our results and we would count that, especially for amateur lifts. Like, I mean, you can have as many amateur lifters as you want, so they just need to qualify. And so same thing, maybe we have some US citizens in Australia that would like to compete on the US team, but they need a means in which to qualify. And so to kind of get away from having to do an online competition to allow them to qualify, they could lift in person with a real judge at a legit meet, and still be able to qualify, and vice versa. Like you have somebody that is here for work but is an Australian citizen, they're like, I'm going to miss Australian nationals, and to figure out like these reciprocity agreements to get more people to Worlds,
That's awesome.
because
That should be the goal.
we
That's it.
none of us are getting paid to lift. Okay. We're not Russians. So like I'm not getting paid to go to
We're
Worlds. Nobody's
losing
paying
serious
my
amounts of
way
money. We're spending
out of
so
my
much
own
money.
pocket. I
Yes.
wish I had a sponsor that paid my flights and stuff, but that's, it's just, I do this because I love Kettlebell. So,
Yeah.
to make it just easier for everybody, so we can get like the best team possible at Worlds, you can get the people that you want to have there that want to go, and just eliminate some of those barriers.
Yes, yes, that's right. So if I can eliminate those barriers, that's the plan. WKSF, June 2025.
Okay. I'll reach out to Sarah Summers. So she's kind of the one that like helped us organize like something back and forth. And I'll see what, because I know that we accept theirs. I just need to make sure that it's
I
going,
heard
but
something
I
about,
assume it is.
yeah, yeah.
But I'll just need to, I'll actually talk to her later on today because I have a meeting with WKSF today at like 3 o'clock.
Well,
Um, so yeah,
okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Kim. This is great.
yeah.
It's nice to
Well,
finally.
it was really great. I know it's really great talking to you. It was great seeing you this whatever 2 weekends ago now or a weekend ago. You know, Jen's a really nice person. Always enjoyable to talk to. So, and I don't get to see you that often, just once every couple of years. So, like I said, it's really good meeting
Same.
back up with you. So,
Yeah, do this more often.
okay. Well, you
Okay.
should have a good Saturday. If anybody out there has any other topics that they would like us to cover for the Kettlebell Almanac page, I know our next one coming up is on mace swinging, and there's some club work in it. But yeah, if there's any specific topics that you want, and we may have already covered it, that's fine. We can do it again with a different person because everybody's got all kinds of different information, and sometimes you hear it from one person and somebody else could say it just a little bit different, and then it clicks. So uh, or if you want to teach a kettlebell almanac session, just reach out to me. Like all these people do this for free. I did not pay them to come on here because I could not afford that. Uh,
You don't have to pay people to talk
so
about what they love.
yeah, so they all come on here, just to help share the knowledge because I think it's important that this information is free and easy to access so that we can grow the sport and people can get better because not everybody's like has the advantage of training with a coach every day. So
That's right.
okay, well you have a good Saturday and I will talk to you later.
You too. Thanks, Kim.